Hello world, welcome to a new video on this channel, Luis of Ecuador, where I, Luis, speak about events, news, things in and of Ecuador from Ecuador. And this video will not be the exception. I would like to post videos on a more frequent basis, but it's not always possible. Many things happen, and when I am making the videos, and then something else happens. So we've got two options: either lowering the production and just making simple videos where I walk, talk, that's it, and I don't post like videos or text about these to explain more in detail, or we've got to open something like a Patreon where I can get funds in order to be able to pay an editor, because I'm doing everything myself at the moment. And well, we'll see. You let me know in the comments what you would think about these. But well, in this video I'm talking about two things. I wanted to make a video for each, but that's not possible. It's simply not possible at the moment. And what is it? We're going to talk about the recent elections in Ecuador, where we voted for several things. And we're also talking about something that happened recently. There was a surge like in the murder rate in the city, and numbers went crazy out of a sudden. So I know many of you are concerned, so we're talking about this. And I'm doing that from the place of the event. I'm in Cuenca. I'm in the Ordóñez Lazo Avenue. I'm in the most expensive area of town, where you have these high condos. Many people come here and I wouldn't have imagined Cuenca like this, because it's all modern buildings and nice streets. And you see lots of North American people walking around. And that's why this area is also known as Gringolandia. This is not an area mainly inhabited by American people, or gringos as some call them. But yeah, it's an area for, well, middle to high class. Not necessarily only wealthy people, but you have nice apartments, nice condos, penthouses that are around $500,000, and one of the most expensive hotels in town, one of the best, yes, also, Oro Verde. As you see, this area is very nice. I actually made a video some time ago, last year, for 2 blocks away from here, in my voting center, because just 2 streets from here, you will have a different perspective of the area, because you still have dirt roads. I don't know if they finished paving that, but more simple houses. And some people are concerned because they are that there is gentrification here. Until just 10 years ago, this was very different. 20 years ago, even more. There were still small houses here, single family houses, but now you have lots of huge buildings, condos, and it's one of the most desired areas in the country. It's actually the second most expensive square meter of the country, after the area in La Carolina, in north of Quito, in the financial district of Quito. This is a residential area. Well, it's also quite commercial, but just 1 block from here to the other side of this, you have the river, nice walk. I actually made a video there, but I haven't posted it yet. That may be my next video, that was planned to be posted last week, but things happen. And I think you want to know about these things that happen. First, as I said, the elections. Well, we voted this past Sunday, November 16th, for 4 questions. The president called to vote on these questions. First question. I'm not going to go deeply into it, because I already did that with my friend GMAs. We did a live streaming where we talk a lot. It's a 2-hour stream where we went in detail about the questions and talking about the situation of the country. So if you are really interested in knowing that, you can check out the GMA's channel, and I'm leaving the link to that video in the description. And by the way, follow him, because he's good to show things about Ecuador from a cultural perspective, and a different one than the one here in the Andes, because He's from the coastal region. Well, I'm basically from the coastal region as well, but I've been here for 10 years already, so I have another perspective from here. All questions were yes or no, simple, a referendum. The first question was to decide whether we wanted to allow foreign military bases in Ecuador. And yes, it was to give support to the government, basically, because we have now war against criminality and we need help. But we voted no. Why? In the big perspective, most people voted no because many simply wanted to tell the president, we don't like the way you're acting, so we're not granting you this. We have already voted for you. Last year there was another consultation. We voted yes, and things didn't really change. Let me walk to that area because there are many cars here. Maybe you can't hear me well, so I'm going to cross. By the way, be very careful. I'm expert at crossing here, but be very careful. You don't do this because people have died here. I recall a senior American man that died like 4 years ago here, hit by a car. Well, you shouldn't cross here, but again, I have experience. Let me go to the area of the river to talk with less noise. Okay, I think we can speak with less noise here. And, well, that's the big perspective. President Noboa called to this consultation. He wanted the yes, of course, but that option lost. Some people say Noboa didn't lose, Ecuador lost, but people send the message. We do not agree with the way you are acting, with the way you're handling, managing the government. And for the military bases, the main argument for voting no for many people, again, in the big perspective, I really think no won because people simply wanted to tell the government, we don't like the way you're behaving. But people who were arguing, people who were calling to vote no, they were arguing that we don't have to give away sovereignty. That's like telling the world, we cannot take care of our country, so let's give part of our territory to other countries to take care of our country. So people were arguing more like, we have to take care of our country, we have to take care of our problems. So no one. Look how beautiful this river is. You know the name of this river? The Tomebamba River. When it goes and passes by the historic district, it divides the historic district that is on top of a cliff from the urban area. In this part, we don't have historic areas. We're still like 1 mile away from the historic district. The question number 2 was to defund political parties from the public money, because with the public money, the public funds, we pay the campaigns of the political parties when there are elections and also along the year, so that the parties have way of training their bases and all of that. There were arguments in both. The main argument to vote yes was, this is a waste of money because these people are corrupt and there are parties that they only join the elections to get some money. I mean, it's like their special work season. And yes, in practice, that has happened. Some people even rent the parties to make money during the election season. But the people who were arguing to vote no are saying the problem is not that there is public money. The problem would be the control of how that money is used. Because yes, there is a very weak enforcement of the control of that. But also, the main argument to vote no to this question was that we may end up like the US or other countries, where only the big companies, the big wallets would be able to fund campaigns, and they would put their candidates in power. Because, let's say, if I wanted to run for whatever position, I wouldn't have money to run a campaign. I wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, I would have to do it with very little money. So with social media, if you have followers, if you are a big star influencer, how they call it nowadays, yeah, then you would be able to do something, or you may be able to do something. But the reality is like if I have an income of 1,000 a month and I have a few friends that are going to support me or people that don't really have that much money to support me, then I will be able to run a campaign of maybe, I don't know, $5,000, $10,000 against people who are able to get funds of 500,000, even $1 million. So it will be very difficult. How will you fight against that? So what we have to do, and people that were calling to vote no, is we all should play by the same rules with the funds, and the government has to, or the electoral power has to control how that money is used. But we all should be playing in the same rules, because otherwise only the big wallets, the big companies would fund companies. And like in other countries, then only the lobbyists would have the power. They would put the candidates in power. So no one here. Question number 3. It was to reduce the number of lawmakers, the number of assembly people, the people who are in what we call the assembly, equivalent to the Congress, where we vote for making the new laws. And they also control the executive power. Not control, sorry. They supervise the presidential branch of the government. They are one of the 5 powers of the state, because we have the presidency, the executive power, judicial power, the lawmakers, the poder legislativo, well, the lawmakers. The 4th would be the electoral power, and 5th, the citizen power, which is a branch that, well, many people are debating about eliminating this. This is like a board of people that don't belong to political parties that are voted and elected to also regulate and equilibrate the other powers. But anyway, the question was, would you like to reduce the current number of lawmakers? That is, I can't recall the exact number now, but over 130, and to have it reduced to 72 or 73. And because the main argument was this is a waste of money again to the state that has a lot of debt, and we're a poor country, we don't need to be spending so much money. So people voted no. But why? What was the argument? Again, I think no one, because people wanted to tell Novoa simply not. We don't like the way you're doing, and this was like a message. But also, this was the only question that was about to win. And yes, this was tied. Like no was 53% against yes 47%. The rest, no won by far. People who were arguing to vote no, they said that under the new system, well, actually this was like mathematically proven. Under the new system, it was the most likely that only 2 parties would be able to have the power, that would be able to have lawmakers elected, because the current system allows people, let me cross again, because I need to go back to that area, but you can have a better perspective from here. This is the Andes. With the current system, the small parties that have big presence in specific small areas or smaller areas, they're able to have lawmakers elected. So there are small like election districts that are able to have representation. But under the new system, only the big parties would be able to have the people in the Congress. And that would make that the government has the power to make all decisions, basically. Because at this moment, people don't want to vote for the opposition. That is the correísmo, the left. The Now, no voted. And you would say, but then the opposition to Noboa is majority. No, not really. People who voted for no, they are not all against the government. And they wouldn't ever vote for the left, even though that's what Correismo is trying to sell. I mean, they're saying, we are the most, you see, there was fraud in the last elections, we won because we are the most. And no, the opposition to Noboa is not necessarily the most, or at least the left is not the most, because there are many people who don't like how Noboa is doing, but they wouldn't ever vote for the opposition. They would prefer to vote for Noboa instead of the others, right? Again, the people didn't want to give full power to Noboa. And that's when the fourth question comes. The fourth question was whether we want to change the constitution, whether we want a new constitution. And people voted no. Again, if we had voted yes, we would have to have elected the new lawmakers for the new constitution in a few months. And then they would present a proposal to the people of the constitution. And we would have voted yes or no to that project, to that proposal. But people simply wanted to say no. The message was mainly like, we don't want to give you the power to the government or the opportunity to create a new constitution to your own measure, because the government has made some things that are not in agreement with what the law, the regulations say. And if he's doing that under the current law, if the government is doing that under the current law, people were concerned that making the new constitution would just be something to have full power. And there was also even the chance that the opposition could make a new constitution to favor them. The situation at the moment is that they are not really negotiating. So a new constitution at the moment with the political parties we have in power, with how everything is going with artificial intelligence, social media, lots of fake news. And yeah, I know many of you don't like the term fake news, but wherever they come from, fake news are fake news. You know what I mean? We have seen that in the last elections. Both parties launched fake news. One of them was even like, we have to vote for a new constitution to not lose the US dollar as our currency. Fake news. On the other hand, there were people saying the new constitution will eliminate the rights of nature. No one said that. I mean, it could have been because of things we have seen. But the other thing was that the government, when the president was asked, so you are calling to create a new constitution, what is your proposal? In an interview, he said, when people vote yes, I will present my proposal. So we wait until people vote yes, they want a new constitution, and I will present my proposal. So that was like basically saying, okay, I want to hire you, but I'm not giving you any job descriptions. I'm not giving you any news about salary, nothing. You sign here the contract and you will be my employee. Then I will tell you what you will do at that moment. Or like a marriage proposal, and tell the other person you want to be with them and not telling them anything about your projects. Like, you accept to get married to me, and then I will tell you what I want to do. So that was basically it, and people decided to vote no. I am even suspicious if the president really wanted to win, because this was it was so weird how the campaign was managed. That's basically it. The government, after they saw they lost the next day, on Monday, they made lots of changes in the government. They switch ministers, they switch high-ranked people, and maybe we have a change in how the government is managed. We will see. But for the moment, this is just very recent. I'm concerned because many people are arguing now, well, we have high criminality and it will get worse because you decided to vote no. You didn't want to support the government that is acting against the criminals, and it will get worse thanks to your no vote. But during the strikes, the government showed that they can make things happen. They have a big army, and they have caught the most wanted criminals without changing the laws. Yes, they changed the law last year that even allow extraditions with sent to the US, one of the most wanted men. We are in cooperation with other countries. In Spain, they caught the most wanted man of Ecuador last week. So there's intelligence work that is working. You know what I mean? And without changing the constitution, without changing the laws. So many people also said, no, you can work with what you have. So you don't have to make a new constitution as you like it, because it's possible. You already proved during the strikes, during the protests, and other things that you have been making that you can make things happen. But there are people with such maybe fanatism level, and you know that this maybe in most of the world, people want to vote for their guy and they want to win and they want to celebrate their victory. While that happens, the country is losing. But the government can make things happen. That's what they have to show. Now, that's about the popular consultation. If you want to look even beyond, you can go to GMA's channel and watch that stream. I'm closing this video with something, which is the criminality levels that have increased here in Cuenca. I'm in the area of Ordóñez Lazo, as I told you, where the big condos are. But I'm at a point where 3 weeks ago, or 1 month ago now, in this exact point that I am pointing here, there were 2 people by a hitman. They came here in a truck. When the truck stopped at the traffic light, they sent them to go up. You know what happened? They sent them to meet God. Because the social media reduces your visibility when you talk about these topics. We say desvivir. That's the word we use in Spanish now in social media. And yeah, 2 guys were desvividos here, which would be like unlived here. And people were really shocked because we're talking about the most expensive area of Cuenca, one of those that were considered the safest area in town, and this happened right here. This is the heart of what they call Gringolandia, where many Americans live, middle-class people. And so how could this happen? Where the guys caught? Where? Only one guy, I think the owner of the car was caught. I haven't heard more news about that. But what I can tell you is that this happened because there is a war among many gangs in the whole country. But in Cuenca, the Lobos gang, the wolves, they are in control of the drug trafficking here. We don't have a lot of drug trafficking here. It's more what they call micro trafficking, like in bars, discotheques, or people that consume this garbage per little. And the gangs that control these micro sales, they are now fighting. There was one gang, the Wolves, that divided or something like that, and they are fighting. So the people that were killed were related to that, according to the police. One of the people that were unlived, he had a criminal record, a criminal history. And you hardly ever know about someone being unlived here that doesn't have a criminal history or that is not related to anything bad. Why are also people so shocked? Yes, death of people is shocking. But also because last year, 2024, in the city, we had 15 murders. And we had 8 so far. I mean, the numbers were reducing. But in October, we matched that because only in October, we had 8 until October, 8 murders in the town, in the city. And only in October, there were 7 more deaths. So people were like shocked and people are concerned about what's happening here. But yes, there is a battle here that's really happening.
La violencia se tomó el corazón del austro. La tarde del miércoles, 2 hombres oriundos de Quevedo fueron acribillados con más de 15 disparos en una zona residencial de Cuenca. Uno de ellos tenía antecedentes penales. Este crimen confirma que la capital azuaya ya no es ajena a la guerra que enfrenta a los Lobos y Lobos Box, dos estructuras criminales que se disputan el control del sur del país. Según una investigación policial, la pugna se intensificó tras la sentencia de 40 años impuesta al cabecilla de los Lobos de Cuenca por asesinato. Desde entonces, los Lobos Box intentan tomar el control total de la ciudad, que tiene 625,000 habitantes y que hoy está dividida en 7 sectores bajo la mira del crimen organizado.
Hacen esto por el tema del microtráfico. No tenemos en sí problemas de extorsiones a la gente que está realizando actividades normales.
Aunque las cifras oficiales indican 15 muertes violentas en lo que va del 2025, la misma cantidad del 2024, la percepción de inseguridad se disparó porque solo en octubre se registraron 7 asesinatos.
Ahí ya intervienen unidades investigativas, unidades de inteligencia, para tratar de ir estableciendo alguna similitud en estos crímenes, ¿no? Si de pronto están participando los mismos sicarios o las mismas organizaciones delictivas.
Las autoridades locales organizaron este jueves 2 reuniones a puerta cerrada en distintos lugares de la ciudad. El alcalde convocó al frente de seguridad y el gobernador al fiscal provincial y el jefe policial. Sin embargo, hasta el cierre de este informe no se hicieron públicas las decisiones o acciones que resultaron de estos encuentros. En el Austro, en el 2025, la policía ha capturado a 1,900 personas vinculadas a 15 organizaciones delictivas.
But like, are people unsafe? I wouldn't really tell so. Are people safe? Well, you have to take basic caution measures. I come from a very worse place, and I have my family in Guayaquil and many friends, and I know how, and well, in many parts of the coastal region, so I know how things are there. And in Cuenca, you can walk like I am, but in Guayaquil, it's not so easy. You have to be very aware everywhere. Here, not so much. I lived in Venezuela. It was very chaotic. Here in Cuenca, you don't have these concerns. The municipality has been doing many things to improve that. They have put cameras. They have set up a big security center here. It's actually the biggest security center, watching center of a municipality here, because the security is responsibility of the central government, the national government, the federal government. But some municipalities, they also decide to invest a lot in security. And the Cuencan government also has done that. And I would say that Cuenca is safe still. It's not super safe, but I wouldn't say, well, it's a dangerous city. But yes, in October, this happened, the 7 deaths and already 7 murders. This is mainly because of these guns fighting for the control of the micro trafficking. That's the main thing happening right now here. I would prefer not to make videos about this, not because I would like to hide it, but just because I wouldn't like it to happen. But you know how I am, and that's why many of you follow me, because you know I talk about these things. And that's it. I don't know for how much longer I will be making these videos, because I've been really busy. It's curious. But looks like things in tourism are rising again. The promotion of Ecuador for overseas, in a way, is improving, or people are getting adapted to hearing the bad news of Latin America and Ecuador. I'm not sure. But if this continues, then I will have less time. I'm editing my videos, I'm producing everything, so it gets complicated for me to keep updating this. So again, I will just need to make very, very basic videos, or I will need to hire an editor so that I just record and this person takes care of the rest, even post it and all of that. So you let me know what you think. If you'd like to keep watching this type of updates. I think I didn't tell you that most of these buildings, they're less than 15 years old here. This area is the one that has changed the most in all of Cuenca. But the drivers, they don't change. Well, that would be it for now from Ordóñez Lazo Avenue, aka Gringolandia. Let me know what you would like to know about. If you like this type of videos, or if you just would like very, very short, concise things. But I'm not sure if I would be able to do that, because then I wouldn't be able to explain things. And you could watch just a news report and translate it, and it would be the same. In 5 minutes, you would get the same that I can tell you in a 3 minutes video, but you would lose a lot of context. And also, I like showing around. I know many of you want to see around, so that's what I try to do. Looks like they will make another building there. Well, thank you very much. Remember to share this channel with people who are interested in coming to Ecuador. Remember that I also work assisting with that, so if you are interested, you can send me a message. We can have a chat, complimentary call, not like I will be charging you for a basic call. Now, if you need further assistance, more complex things, that would be something else. Let me know in the comments what you would like to hear about, what you would like to see. I actually made a video about the area of the constructions. I think that will be my next video. That's already recorded. But I wanted to talk about this thing first before posting that. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.